I used to do lots of things.
I used to do things and I'd say things and Jesus I was evil. Take things and break things and Jesus I was evil. I never shook baby.
Great. Now my laptop is bleeding.
All right. Welcome, Jim Jurassic Clark, regular of the pod. I don't know. You've been on like three times, twice.
I think this is the third time now. Yeah.
This is the third
Yeah.
time. Yeah, for our annual Horror in July episode. Welcome, my friend.
Yeah, good to see you, Ben. Jim. I'm getting everyone's names. Good
Glad
to
to
see
be
you, man. So how you been, man? How are things at the drive-in, man?
Actually, moved on from the drive-in. Honestly, turned to the dark side. I'm working at a Regal now.
Oh God,
No.
sell
Yeah.
out.
Hey,
I'm just kidding.
Money was better on the other side. What can I
Yeah,
say?
man, of course.
No.
But no, I do miss it. I'm actually going to be going there this Thursday. That's kind of the event I was talking to you guys about earlier. They're playing the Burbs with Fright Night. So
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Oh,
Nice.
I'm going.
That's-
I'm going. Like I have to.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it'll be nice to see who's still working and stuff like that. But yeah, we moved. We're at a different spot now.
Okay.
Just working on school stuff. I got through my whole first semester. I'm going to do like film stuff now. You know what I mean? Script writing. I actually did news writing too, course on that just to kind of see what it was all about.
Yeah.
I figured it would help strengthen my stuff. But yeah, then that's basically what I've been doing.
it's great.
That's awesome,
Do you
dude.
still have the giant Jason blow up? Was it a blow up or
He's stuffed, and yeah, we got him.
stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, he's in actually the back window of our new place, looking out the window. So you'll know my place if you come driving by because you'll just see him like standing there.
That's awesome, dude.
Pretty sweet. I'm sure the neighbors love it.
Oh yeah.
So, Jim, because you're active in the theater experience. You've been checking out some recent horror movies. So, anything interesting that's popped up on your radar? Anything cool that you've seen recently?
Honestly, my favorite one that I've seen so far was Maxine. I'm going to be real with you. It's kind of funny how it worked out because there's a couple of people I work with. They're like, I don't know how I feel about it. It feels like it was made by a different actor or different director.
Mhm.
But honestly, I think it was like the perfect finale for the character. You know what I mean? Because they really maximized their budget, especially when you take set design and costume design into account. Like they sold a really convincing 1985. So so you got like cars, outfits, like how that's like that stuff kind of can add up in a budget.
Yeah.
And I guess they only made that thing on like $2 million or something like that. And it's just like
Nice.
they maximized that budget. Like seriously, they took it far.
Nice.
Yeah. I love that because that's like I'm a sucker for the nostalgia effect, and we're going to talk about our underrated movies, underrated horror, and some of that's a big part of it. But it's like especially like summer, like a horror 80s movie. I know a lot of people say action, but even me, like a horror 80s movie in the summer.
Yeah.
It's New York City, right?
No, it's California.
Oh, it's LA.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. Same. Yeah, either or, they kind of have their own like aura to them, and just that 80s with Mia Goth, like I'm in. Sweet.
Right.
Yeah. But another one I just watched was Long Legs. I'm gonna be real. Personally, I wasn't a huge fan of that one, but there were a lot of good elements about it, like beautiful cinematography. Like the camera work in that movie is amazing.
Cool.
The costume design was really good. Set design was really good.
Nick Cage.
Nick Cage. It's like like he does his classic kind of weird kind of screaming kind of stuff, but it's unsettling. You know what I mean? Especially when you take what he looks like in account. But it's making money, man. Like, and it's cool because it's an independent film, and what I'm seeing a lot of a pattern of, at least at where I work, is the more independent like horror films tend to do better than the big money ones. You know what I mean? A good example is like that movie Imaginary, like not the one with the Steve Carell, the one where the scary one.
I don't know that one.
It's terrible.
Oh.
Like I was falling asleep through it. You know, my wife like painfully stayed awake, you know, just to kind of give it a chance. And she was like, "I regret it. What a waste of time."
but most importantly about Longlegs, is it scary?
I would say no, but like it's more of a thriller. And it's very unsettling. Like that's the word I would use. Like, you know, I feel like there's a couple times where they're building you up for like a jump scare, but it kind of doesn't happen. You know what I mean? Like they want you to think it's going to happen. So no, I wouldn't really say it's scary, but very unsettling in its imagery.
Yeah, people were comparing it to Seven, the David Fincher one.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, people, and again, I feel like this. And I'm a sucker for this. Like people, it gets the scariest movie ever thrown around, scariest movie in years, and I feel like I've heard that so many times, and then my expectations are set way too high. I think the last one I remember was the new, like not the new Evil Dead, not the one that came out last year, but the one that came out like mid 2010s, like 2016 or 17, around that time. Yeah, it was scary, but like the scariest movie ever, and that's what I've been hearing about Longlegs, which makes me want to see it even more, but then also get let down even more.
Right. Still, I like Oz Perkins. He does some good stuff. He did Gretel and Hansel a while back, and he definitely has like a really cool visual style. And also, it's one of those things where it's like, even if it's not like a modern masterpiece, if it gets people to the cinemas, if it helps keep the horror genre alive with some cool new ideas, it's like, yeah, I'm all for it. So
that's the same.
Yeah, Jim, let me ask you, like, to me, besides like the big blockbusters, the Barbies, the Oppenheimers, the Marvel when it was at its peak, like to me, those are the, I don't know, I'm just coming up with this on the spot. Those are like the sundae, the dessert, or like the fancy entree of movies that can really get a restaurant the Michelin star. But horror movies to me are like the meat and potatoes. Like horror movies, correct me if I'm wrong, they pay the bills, they get the teens in to watch the movies, they buy a lot of tickets, and that's why I think a lot of them, like Blumhouse, can make a whole production company based on low budget slashers and like interesting horror stuff, but not putting too much money into them and still making a ton of money.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also too, like it's almost like, with the lower budget movie, you're kind of exchanging like a bigger budget with the passion that you kind of put into it, and I feel like, that comes across on screen, even if it's like a total shit production, you know what I mean? If they're really like, putting the work in, like, for example, all right, the first Evil Dead, that movie was made on like basically a cracker budget, you know what I mean? And like, and dude's back, wood property, and he got all his buddies together and he like made him do what he needed to do. And that movie like literally has stood the test of time. We're up in the freaking 2020s now.
It's the best.
And people are still comparing shit to that movie. You know what I mean? So it really, I think it comes down to the passion that goes into it. And Nicolas Cage definitely brings a passion to his roles that can't be denied, especially now on this like later end of his career. He's really putting his all in some of these parts.
Well, that's what we were saying last week, is that even though he's made a lot of shit movies, and I love Nicolas Cage, I think he's made some great movies, but like one I watched last year was The Retirement Plan. This is like this crappy movie that feels like an incomplete movie, and just really stupid, but like he gives it his all. He doesn't mail it in. You're still going to get a Nicolas Cage performance, and I will always and then I'll always watch his movies because of that, even if in the end they're like actually pretty bad.
Well, Jim, you also you hit on the idea of like a passion of like passion showing through a project, even if it is kind of a shitty movie. But it's like with horror, I mean, like I've seen like low budget independent, dramas and romance films, and most of the time they're boring. At least with a horror film, even if it's not a very good movie, but if it's low budget, it's like it was, it's kind of a generic movie, but it was crazy. Like it was, it was over the top. It was violent. Like there was a crazy death scene, or so at least you can walk out going like, they went all out. Like they had a little budget and they put all of it towards, that one decapitation scene or something.
Yeah.
So, at least there's like, an enthusiasm for the genre. And I think also working with a small budget and when you're working within a fantastical genre like horror, it forces you to be creative. So there are a lot of really amazing low budget horror films out there. It's like, even if they're not over the top or anything like that. So but that was like a really clever idea. They made good use of just shooting in somebody's garage or in somebody's backyard. They found a way to make it creepy.
100%. Any more contemporary news stuff, movies we want to get into before we start our topic, our main topic?
Yeah, I think that's it for me for like the new stuff that like I've really just dug into.
Oh, the last one movie that was so goddamn bad. It was horror. It's probably going to end up being my worst of the year. Night Swim.
Oh my god, yes.
It's my review is just like it's about a haunted pool. I read a couple more sentences. It's about a haunted pool. It's like just don't go in the pool.
Yeah.
Cover the goddamn pool. Like fill it with cement if you have to. Just don't go in the fucking pool. And you don't have to worry about anything. It's so goddamn bad, dude. It's like and that's the thing. Like I love horror, I always will, and some of my favorite movies are horror movies. But usually, and every year, I make a list of all the so 2023 would be last year, all 2023 movies. Usually, the bottom are a couple of horror movies because they're so bad, where they just are that low budget and they don't connect and they don't hit, and that's fine. And I'll always give those a chance because you'll find those gems. But yeah, last year I think it was called. Joe, what was the movie last year that I said was like one of the worst movies I've ever seen? Something.
I don't remember.
It was terrible. It was about like a cam whore who is being attacked by an ex or like a stalker. Pamela Anderson Lee is in it for 30 seconds, and it's just really, really terrible. But
that's kind of the funny thing about horror too, because like you don't need a whole lot of pre-production time to make it, because I remember within like 3 months of the pandemic, somebody came out with a found footage pandemic, like the COVID horror movie. You guys remember? I can't remember what it was called, but it was a British one. No, it was not very good. It had just
that's what it was called. Actually, it's not very good.
Yeah, but there's only one kind of cool scene, and it was like you know how like you when you do like FaceTime, like there are those apps where you can put like a goofy face, like a clown face, or a princess face or whatever on over you. Yeah. I just remember there was one part that was kind of cool, but it's like all the ingenuity went to that one shot. It was about this group of girls, and like I think they were college age or something, and they're all just chatting with each other, and there's some kind of like weird demonic presence that's kind of following them, and you kind of see stuff like weird stuff happening in the background. I just remember there was one shot where in the background you just see like a face, like a silly face, just like there's an entity there, like the camera was picking up, but like you couldn't see. I was like, oh, that's kind of a clever little thing.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
But that was kind of like the extent of the scares. And it was like, you guys just kind of you guys wrote the script like overnight when they announced the lockdowns, and then you guys shot this over a weekend, which I'll give them credit for, like capitalizing on like a world event, and then like, hey, how can we make this to a movie, long distance with each other?
Well, that I think that's a genre that, and by the way, I found the name of this movie. It's called Alone at Night. I gave it a 24. So those who you listen regularly, you'll know what that's very low. And this is a COVID movie that was released in 2023. So like the plot being she's in like the mountains of somewhere, I think California, some like small town, and she's there to kind of wait out COVID or whatever. I'm like, it's 2023. No one wants this movie now. And it's also just terrible. And one of the things that drives me nuts is like the cover, of course. I'm gonna like a hot chick looking in the reflection of a knife. Like, okay, I'm gonna watch it, right?
Yeah,
That's just like
yeah.
typical.
Right.
The killer doesn't even use a knife; he uses a crowbar. It's like not even the right weapon.
That's lame.
So it's shit like that. And there's a
Yeah.
really, really terrible movie. But yeah,
See, I
that's
think-
it. Alone at Night. Don't watch it.
I think you bring up a kind of an interesting point with that, like with how they spit out movies. Because another like bunch of movies that I feel like are total crap are those ones that like when Winnie the Pooh and Mickey Mouse went into the public
domain. Yeah.
It's like, you know,
Like horror.
they
Winnie
must
the
have had
Pooh.
those ready to go because as soon as that happened, they're like, all right, Winnie the Pooh is here for blood. You know what I mean? And there was actually a sequel to that, I guess. So there's two of them now.
Yeah, I did not see that.
Universe. It's like, oh my God.
It's going to be horror, and then there's going to be porn of like these.
Yeah, exactly.
Mickey porn.
Yeah. Well, it's
probably actually already exists, but I mean, I
I'm
wouldn't
sure it
know.
does.
I haven't seen it. I didn't watch it. I don't watch it.
You know, I definitely agree with you that there is something, you know, kind of trashy about just like capitalizing on stuff like that. But at the same time, it does kind of remind me a little bit of like Roger Corman in the 1950s, where it's like he had this gimmick where he would put out a poster for a movie for like some low budget, like, you know, like monster movie, and if people weren't excited enough about it, then he would just take the poster down. But okay, we're not making the movie. But if it got enough buzz, it's like, oh, people are excited about it. Okay, let's make the movie now. So he would put the poster out just to like test. So there's like even though it is kind of like trashy, there is something about like that. You know, like, you know, Ben and I, we often talk about like that sort of like snake oil salesman thing. And this is different, but like just like that sort of like American gimmicky, like, you know, Barnum and Bailey sort of like, okay, how can we? Exactly, you know.
Yeah.
So there is like that, you know, sleazy entrepreneurial spirit that I always kind of like. All right, I'll give you credit for being proactive.
Yeah, and what I was getting at before was there are movies that were like explicitly COVID movies, which I think was not very smart. I think people want to escape from that.
Exactly,
that's what Alone at Night was. That's what the movie was that you just talked about. But then there are movies that were made during COVID that actually could be really clever. It was I just watched a really good one actually called Monolith that I'm counting as a 2024 movie. It came out in 2024 here and released here, but it was at like Australian film festivals in 2022, and Australia is also much crazier with their lockdown. So I was like still big. So like basically what I'm saying is there's one actress on the screen and everything else is phone calls and computers. She has a podcast. This movie is actually really cool. I don't know if either of you have heard about it. It's about like a black brick, like a monolith, obviously very reminiscent of 2001: Space Odyssey, and it's just like all these connections, and she's doing a true crime thing, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You could see where it goes from there, has like a extraterrestrial sci-fi shit. But that's like a really cool, clever movie that was made during COVID. But it's not like it's not a COVID set movie. It was just made during COVID, and that I give a lot of credit to because that's just like movie making ingenuity, which I'll always appreciate.
Yeah, definitely. Well, enough about movies that we don't like.
So let's get into
let's spread the love.
Underrated horror. So, you know, you take this however you want. I look at it as movies that I like recommend to people who are looking for something new, probably something they haven't heard of. Whether they're like this isn't going to be Nightmare on Elm Street, this isn't going to be Hereditary, and it's not going to be Midsommar or anything like that. These are movies that I think either most people don't know about, like your average viewer doesn't know about, or that you might just think are much better than the average, like their ratings are, what their scores are, what they're kind of thought of in the horror genre. I know I have at least one on here that I think I've talked about before, even in an episode with Jim. But I wanted to touch on that again. So I have a handful. I think we all have a handful. Obviously, let's let Jim go first. If you want to share your first one, doesn't matter what order you want to do it in. Just let it rip.
All right. I think since Nicolas Cage kind of keeps coming up, I kind of want to start with one of his movies. It's called Between Worlds. I saw it for the first time the other day, and it was actually kind of like, whoa, this is actually a pretty good movie. So long story short is he's kind of this truck driver guy, and he stops at this truck stop and he goes to use the bathroom, and he comes in and this big guy's like choking this girl in this bathroom stall, and he like beats the shit out of him, and he's like, we don't do that here, you know what I mean? And long story short is she asked the guy to do it, but it wasn't sexual or anything. Is when she gets like put out, she can cross between worlds, right? And we find out that her daughter was in this really bad accident. She was dying, and she saved her from dying. So in doing so, like her daughter comes home and starts like getting real familiar with Nicolas Cage's character and like knowing stuff about him. You know what I mean? Like acting like, she's like, oh, I missed you so much. He's like, well, I don't know you. You know what I mean? And it turns out to be like his dead ex. And like his kid and his ex like passed away, and now she's like possessing this girl's daughter, and it's a crazy ride. Like, and even the finale of the movie, it's got some weird like CGI kind of fire because it's very low budget. You know what I mean? So they couldn't do like a burn on a guy, but it's just like, like there's some crazy stuff that goes on in it, you know what I mean? And I think it's definitely worth watching.
All right, Between Worlds. I do not know that one.
Yeah, this flew under the radar.
Joe, it says it is evocative of the works of David Lynch.
Yeah, I just saw that. I'm looking at that in the Wikipedia thing. Right?
I saw it first.
All
right.
I don't care.
All right.
Very much.
Noted. So, Joe, would you like to go next?
Sure. So for me, I'm picking Frailty. This one came out in 2001.
I have that on my list, actually. So don't spoil it, because I do want to watch it.
Right. No, I won't give anything too much away. But so it's directed and stars Bill Paxton, who I'm a huge admirer of. Rest in peace. But yeah, so the movie takes place in a small town in Texas, and it revolves around this family. Bill Paxton plays the father of these two boys. The mom had passed away sometime earlier, and they're like this very sweet, like innocent, wholesome, like God-fearing family in a small town. And one night, Bill Paxton's character, he wakes the boys up and he says, "Boys, something amazing happened. God came to me in a dream, and he gave me the power to see demons in human form, and he gave us this quest. We have to destroy these demons." So they go around and they start killing people who the father believes is a demon in human form. And then, but then one of the boys starts seeing. He starts to claim that he can see these demons in human form as well. I won't give much else past that, but I will say, like, I thought it was actually like a really thoughtful look at sort of like, kind of playing with the idea of doing something bad but for a good reason, or you're doing something good but it's disguised as something bad. And I won't give much else past that, but yeah, I thought it was actually like a really thought-provoking, kind of much more like a thinking man's horror film that explores morality in a really fascinating, and it also explores religion in a fascinating way too. I'm curious to get someone like a Christian's perspective on it, to see if they consider it to be like blasphemous, or if it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's and it's even though there's it revolves around killing people. Like most of the violence is off screen, so it's definitely much more of like a thriller rather than just a straight up body count movie. So yeah, I highly recommend that one.
Yeah, that's on my list, and that sounds really cool.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm up. I'm gonna list just a few what I'm calling honorable mentions. I'm not going to go into details about them, but I'm just going to list them and give my ratings for them. 10 Minutes to Midnight came out in 2020. Have either of you seen that one? It's very cool. It's a pretty short movie. I think it's under an hour and a half. It has Caroline Williams from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, right? And it's just cool. It's kind of about ageism, being replaced, vampires. It's schlocky. It's kind of a single location. It's kind of funny at times. Definitely recommend that one. I give it a 79. Next, I have a movie that actually Jim got me to watch that I had almost taken off of my list, which is Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Oh yeah,
Surprisingly good movie.
Yeah,
what I
it's a
said is
fun one.
the trailer for that stinks. It does it no favors, but it's actually a really good movie. Great practical effects horrors like we are on this podcast will love
Yeah.
it. I gave it an 81. It's a
Real
very
quick.
yeah.
The Kyoto brothers, who the ones who wrote, directed, and produced that, they made the puppets for Team America: World Police.
Right, yeah.
So
Yeah, they're great, and
Yeah.
it's a very schlocky, cool, funny, interesting movie.
Yeah.
Lastly, I don't know if this would technically be considered a horror. I'm saying it more. I think it is because it's a serial killer. But Death Proof, Quentin Tarantino's Death Proof. I think this movie gets way too much hate. Although I did look at my list, it is my lowest Tarantino movie. That just shows how amazing he is. I give it an 84. But I think this movie is actually really cool. I think it's interesting. It's one of the as a stunt man who kills people with his stunt car. Kurt Russell's great. I'm a big fan of locations in movies. Like Joe, we just went to the diner from Reservoir Dogs. Like I love shit like that. I want to go to the Texas Chili Parlor in Austin. It's one of the first places I want to go to. That's where a lot of the classic lap dance scene takes place. He eats those delicious looking nachos. If you're into like movie foods, like those nachos grande he eats are like one of my favorite movie foods. And I just think it's an underrated movie, and I think it gets overshadowed because it's Tarantino, and even Tarantino says he thinks it's his worst movie. I think he's being too hard on himself. All right. So my pick now, I'm just going to go in order of lowest to highest. So I'm going to go with a movie that I believe I've talked about with Jim on this podcast, and that's 30 Days of Night. I actually think this movie rules. It's fun, really scary vampires. Like this is not your Twilight vampires or even your Bram Stoker vampires. This is like horrific monster vampires. I think the setting is sweet up in Alaska where the sun doesn't shine for 30 days. So these I mean, they're technically vampires, but they're really more of just like monsters can come out at night and just wreak havoc. One of my all-time favorite one-liners is who's that? What's his name? That's is it Danny Houston? I think he's playing the head vampire, like the leader. I think that's him. The girl is just, she knows she's about to get annihilated, is praying to God. And they like don't speak, they just like scream at each other. And he just looks at her and goes like, no God. It's just like this creepiest thing. And I think this movie's pretty gnarly. It's not a perfect movie, but I think it's fun. And I give it an 84, and I think it gets shit on a lot by reviewers.
That one was based on a comic book series too.
Yeah, it's a graphic novel, which I have not read, but I think it's really cool. And even upon I feel like I liked it a lot when I first saw it. It's from 2007. Yeah. And I rewatched it maybe 3-4 years ago, and I'm just like, this movie's really good. I like it.
Cool.
All right,
Jimbo,
back to you.
All right, so the next one we got here. I actually watched this one when I was down in Miami. We were waiting to go on the cruise, so we were just kind of killing some time. It's called Stop Motion.
I have this on my list too.
Very, very gritty, creepy, like dark kind of movie. Like let's just put it this way. It's the kind of movie where you can kind of see the textures, and it's like this one is very sticky and kind of like gross and wet kind of textured movie. And it's about this woman who's a puppeteer, and she helps her mother do the stop motion show, and her mom's like slowly like slipping into dementia and like trying to retire, but she's trying to finish this masterpiece and like forcing her daughter to do it. And that's as far as I'm gonna go with it. Like seriously, if it's on your list, definitely watch it. Very visual.
So the whole movie's not stop motion animation. It's like it's live action with some stop motion.
Right.
Cool. I grew up on stop motion. I always loved it. I grew up on Wallace and Gromit movies. I've heard of you. I don't know. I don't mean to take a pick of this on either of your lists, but Mad God is supposed to be.
Oh, I've been meaning to see that one, the Phil Tippett one.
really gnarly. That's also on my list. I think that's all stop motion. It looks insane.
Yeah, Phil
I don't
Tippett's
know,
is awesome.
Jim, if you've seen that.
No.
Okay,
That sounds-
it looks really
sounds
cool.
interesting. I like stop motion. Like, if you
Yeah.
think about it, like some of the best movies like use it, like Army of Darkness, that whole thing with
Yeah.
the skeletons, that's all stop motion. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
So it is definitely an art I appreciate. Like Tim Burton uses it a lot. I guess he's bringing it back for the new Beetlejuice movie, which is like,
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
So I definitely appreciate stop motion work.
Oh.
All right. For me, it's the 1988 remake of The Blob.
Okay.
The 80s, they really knew how to remake horror movies from the 50s because you had like John Carpenter's The Thing, The Blob is definitely up there, and then David Cronenberg's The Fly.
Wait, The Fly's a remake?
Yeah.
Oh, I did not know that. That's also on my list. I've surprisingly not seen that.
Yeah, and it was cool because I mean, like, because of like the special effects explosion of the 1980s with there's very very little CGI, but like just the idea of using more and more like animatronics and makeup effects like that really exploded in the 1980s, and so I like how they just went all out with that. And and it's really because a good chunk of sci-fi horror movies in the 1950s were very body oriented, like body horror type films. So I'm glad that they really capitalized on that in the 1980s. But anyway, the 1988 remake of The Blob, it's a pretty killer movie. Like it's just like a really big, like, I mean, it had a big budget, but it's just such a fun, like crowd pleasing movie. It just has a little bit of everything, and it's one of those types of movies. It kind of follows like the disaster movie formula, where you have it all takes place in this one little town, where you have like multiple characters. And so you're just kind of seeing this thing kind of impacting everybody. So and like so many like the stock 1980s characters of like you have the jock, you have the cheerleader, and then you have like the outlaw, like with like the sort of biker dude. But they're also all the actors are played really well. You actually like kind of care about them. Like they're not completely disposable. And then you have like the uptight sheriff of the town. So you have like all of the it's just like an ice cream sundae of a movie. It just hits all. It just has everything that you want, and amazing special effects, and they even kill a kid in that movie too. Which is
that sounds wicked.
Yeah. And there's some cool stunts, and like So this movie I think is kind of the epitome of practical effects up to that time because like they use like stop motion and they use like miniatures, animatronics, and a lot of really great like body horror makeup effects, and they blended them all really well. So yeah, The Blob,
Sweet.
1988. Check it out.
Blob 19. And everyone, by the way, guys, write down your lists so that we can post it because people do like to go back and see, because they might listen to it and then go back and want to get the year, for instance, like The Blob, what year, shit like that. All right, me. So going in order here, now I'm at a movie that came out last year. So this is my most recent movie on the list. I don't know if either of you saw. It's called No One Will Save You.
Haven't heard that one.
Jim, have you seen this one? Basically, it's the one where it's aliens and there's no talking.
No, then no.
So I really liked it. I think it's underrated because it only has an 82 for the critics, but only a 56 for the audience score, which is a lot more reviews than those. The voice of the people. Vox Populi. So I think this movie's really cool. I like the actress a lot. I forget something Deaver. I forget her first name. She was good in Booksmart, and she plays kind of almost like she's almost like a trad girl. Like she's out in some home in some picturesque country town. She lives alone, but she looks young. But I mean, she's probably in her 20s in real life. But she looks really young. But she's on her own, and there's this like overwhelming guilt that she has, and she keeps having these kind of flashbacks to guilt of a girl named Maud. You figure out why. I won't give it away, but there are aliens, and there's this like this isn't some Shyamalan twist. This isn't some like it's just aliens are here, and they're scary as fuck. They're like some are kind of like your typical gray, which I always liked, and then some are like giant arachnid type things. And she's just trying to survive against these aliens. and it's really cool how there's no dialogue except for like one line. It adds an eeriness to it. I think maybe that's why some people didn't like it. I can understand that. And you also don't realize it's not like something comes up in the beginning of the movie, like, by the way, no one talks. Like, no, like it kind of hits you 10, 15, 20, half an hour. And you're like, are there any lines in this movie? And I think that's very cool. I think it's a really just classic survival alien horror movie that's like more horror than sci-fi. And that is definitely worth the watch if you haven't seen it, but I think it does not get enough love. I gave it a 86.
All right.
Check that out.
Yeah, it's cool. I think it's on Hulu if you get Hulu.
Oh, definitely. All right. This next one, it might sound a little familiar, but honestly, I follow a lot of like scary movie threads, and I'm in like horror movie groups and just all this like different stuff. And I never see anyone talking about this, and it's funny because it's a star-studded cast, if you ask me. Came out in 1997, Devil's Advocate. It's got Al Pacino back when ooh-ah kind of Al Pacino. Not old man Al Pacino like we got now. A younger Keanu Reeves. And Charlize Theron. She's like a freaking baby in it, man. She got the baby face, chubby little cheeks and shit. So long story short,
lawyer movie.
And Keanu.
Oh my god, I have to see this.
The devil's lawyer, and the devil infiltrates this guy's life at every single turn, and the stuff that kind of happens to Charlize Theron is like kind of reminiscent of Rosemary's Baby. Like if you ever seen that movie, like the people that were in the cult were like gaslighting her up like big time. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of an element that comes with the territory in this one. And honestly, it's like it just amazes me because everybody's like, yeah, Keanu all the time, but nobody brings this movie up. You know what I mean? And I think this is right before he did The Matrix, because wasn't Matrix
99?
Yeah. So it's just like, I feel like this was him on his up, and I don't know, one of my favorite movies, hands down.
Very cool. I'm definitely gonna watch this. I'll watch anything like lawyer related. This is one of those subgenres I love.
That's why I wanted to bring it up. I figured you'd appreciate that.
But that's true, because I mean, you're right. This has Al Pacino, Keanu Reeves, Charlize Theron, and like I've never heard of it, and it's a lawyer movie. Yeah, so it's definitely an underrated movie. All right, I'm definitely watching that one. Let me write that down.
I remember when that one came out. I haven't seen it. I've only seen bits and pieces of it. I got it confused with another similarly styled movie around that time called The Ninth Gate. This one had Johnny Depp in it. But Dean, a rare book dealer, is hired to find the last two copies of a text that holds the key to summoning the devil. However, things change when he finds himself at the heart of a pair of paranormal events. I remember that one being all right, but it's I saw it on TV, so they probably cut out all the good parts. Anyway, that's not my pick. But anyway, so for me, my pick is The Changeling from 1980. Have you guys seen or heard of that one?
I think I've heard of it, but I don't know.
The Changeling is a very classy ghost movie, and I feel like it's almost more like a modern, I don't know, like Victorian ghost story. So it stars George C. Scott.
Oh, love him.
Yeah, he's great. So in this film, he plays a composer, a professor whose wife and young child died in a car accident. Like probably around like a year before the story begins, and so now he's moving on, and he's still like still grieving, and so he moves to a new house, but he starts experiencing like these like what might be the spirit of a dead child, and he thinks that it might be his, but he's not sure if he's still just grieving. I remember that one of the best, like, creepiest moments from that movie is he has like this thoughtful conversation with a friend, and he's finally starting to like come to terms with the loss of his family, and it was symbolized by his child's ball. He has like this rubber ball. And so he goes to a bridge and he throws the ball over. And it's kind of like this bittersweet moment. And it's like him finally saying goodbye. And then he goes home, and then he hears a child's laughter, and then the ball that he threw just comes like bouncing down the stairs. And so, it's just such a cool, like classy, like psychological horror film. So that one, I think, it definitely deserves some more credit.
Sweet.
Yeah, and George C. Scott rules.
Yeah, he's the best.
Yeah.
All right, so I have 4 more. You guys don't have to do 4 more, but I have 4 more because I really love these next 4 movies. Like the other 2 or 3 I talked about, or all the other ones I really like. They're all great. But these next 4 I really love, and this one is from 2020, and this is Possessor.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this is Brandon Cronenberg's Possessor. He's obviously the son of David Cronenberg, body horror king. And this movie I thought was sweet. Joe, did you not like this one very much?
I thought it was okay. It's a very bleak movie, so I just remember not having like any sort of emotional connection to it. It was cool. It was definitely very original for sure. So
I love this movie because this was like I watched this like right when I was starting to get what I called like assassin fatigue. Like there's so many movies about assassins, and it's such like a not even the most recent movie, Hitman movie is like kind of joking how there are no assassins, and it's about catching people trying to hire assassins. I was having assassin fatigue. There's John Wicks are great. The 4th one's not very good, but like it's just it's a lot. But then I saw Possessor, and Possessor rules. This is like a combination of it's like
Inception.
Yeah, it's like a combination of Inception plus an assassin movie, but it's also bleak, like you said, in the sense that it's like this isn't the assassin movie where it's kind of like the people in suits at long tables, like plotting what's going to happen in the world. It's like, no, they're just a corporate, like they're just a business hired out to have to assess for like rival. It'd be like Apple assassinating Samsung CEO or something like that. And it is a bleak, it's like a dystopian 2008. I think it takes place in, it has Christopher Abbott, who I like a lot. If you guys watch Girls, amazing show, by the way. And I'm not saying that ironically. Girls is a great show on HBO. He's in it in the first couple of seasons, and he comes back in the later season. But I just think it's like some pretty gnarly kills, which you're going to expect from Cronenberg. It's, I think, really smart. It shows like it's freaky in the sense of how it's people like spying on us through our laptop screens and how they're using that information. Like it'd be like, Jim, if I'm Christopher Abbott's character, I'm like seeing, well, you have a movie poster behind you. What kind of curtains do you have? All this stuff. And they're like taking all the information to like give to advertisers and that kind of shit. And it's just sort of, it reminds me of like 1984 in a way, where he's just like, instead of plodding along in their gray suits 1984, like going to whatever newspaper job it was, here they're like plodding along with their lanyards, like they're in any Silicon Valley, like Joe used to do, like any Silicon Valley job.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's really, really cool. It has like, and then it messes with, it has also, I know I'm comparing it, I don't want to compare it to everything else, but also it's like an element of Blade Runner in it too. Like, is the assassin getting in too deep? Does she recognize what is real and what is not real? Like what world she's in, or who is she is possessing? And I'll leave it at that. Really cool movie. Listen to me. Don't listen to Joe. It's great. And I highly recommend it.
All right.
So this next one, I picked it because honestly, I think the reason why I feel like it's underrated is because generally you get people that either like Ryan Reynolds or they hate him, you know what I mean? And I hear a lot that's like, oh, he plays the same character and everything. He's always like playing that wise guy kind of character. And for the most part, that's true. But this film, it isn't like the case. Let me see when it came out first.
What's it called?
All right, so it came out in 2014. A movie's called Voices. All right, and basically, Ryan Reynolds plays this guy who hears voices in his head, but it manifests like he's got a cat and he's got a dog. and his his dog's like, what's the matter there, buddy? Did you have a rough day? And he's like, good personality, and then the cat's like real like vindictive, it's like, calling him and the dog stupid, and it's like, it's like you stand up for yourself, you fucking pussy, and shit like that, and it kind of starts out like really lighthearted, like a comedy, but just as the movie just goes on, it gets more and more insane. And honestly, I think some of the goriest shit comes from like towards the end of the movie when everything's just kind of going off, and you realize that he's a lot more insane than like kind of was letting on. It's kind of like maybe kind of a spin on Psycho, I guess you could say, but just like like way more hardcore, so that is definitely something you should check out, and it is not Ryan Reynolds' usual role. He's kind of very childlike, I would say, and it's like he wouldn't kill anybody, like that kind of thing, but like it gets dark.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Yeah, I added that to the list.
The Voices 2014. For my next one, I'm picking a British horror film called Possum. It came out in 2018. Have you guys seen or heard of that one?
I've seen it. We've talked about it.
Oh, that's right. We did talk about it? Oh. Well, anyway, it's actually based on a short story, and the guy who wrote and directed it, he based it on his own story. But it's about this guy who is a puppeteer, I believe, for children, but there's some kind of weird controversy that happens before the film, and it's never really stated what that was. And so now he's moving back in with his uncle, who is like this weird kind of pervy, like
really gross.
Yeah, just like
he's British, so
exactly. But so he's living with his uncle, who's like this like really emotionally abusive piece of shit, and it's like this bleak little town. And so the puppeteer, it's weird because he's kind of like a man child, like he's kind of like just like developmentally stunted or something, or he's just very awkward. And he starts having this vision of this puppet, this really creepy ass puppet of like it's a huge like spider body, but it's got a man's face, but it's like this really blank, pale face. It's a really creepy. They use it to really good effect. Like there are times when he's walking down the street and then you see the puppet kind of creeping around the corner or through a window. So there's a lot of really cool imagery, and it's also like a very bleak movie. Like it's like this very gray, drab,
very
aesthetic.
drab,
yeah,
very drab. Yeah, I liked it. It's good. It's
definitely
creepy. And the actor Sean Harris is great.
Yes.
Like he's a really, really good actor. If I know he was in The Borgias, the show, and he's in other stuff I just can't think of off the top of my head. But very good actor, and definitely a bleak movie.
Yeah, and I just love how it's never quite clear if the puppet is if it's like real or if it's all in his head or it's a little of both. But it's a pretty cool, bleak, surrealistic horror film that I recommend. So,
all right. I'd be remiss if I didn't include an exorcism movie on this list, and because there's probably my favorite subgenre of horror. And this one I give it a 91. It's 2017's Veronica. It's a Spanish movie in Spain. I can't remember too many details of it. I'm looking it up here. I just remember this was a movie that was called like what we were talking about earlier, like scariest movie of the year. Fans or moviegoers having to leave the theater, people like passing out, like, and it kind of lives up to the hype. It's really, really. I remember there's one scene that's not spoiling anything, so it's so well done where I forget why exactly they flip over a bed, like a gross sweat-stained bed, and underneath is like the outline, sweaty black outline of the devil. I thought that was so cool how they did that. And it's that kind of show. I remember being really, the actress in it, the Possessor, assuming that's Veronica, was excellent. And, everyone knows kind of the top exorcism movies. There are a lot of really bad ones out there. But this one, I'm assuming a lot of people have not seen because it's a foreign film. and it's a foreign language, but it's really, really good. So if you like exorcism movies at all, definitely check out Veronica.
Okay.
If I remember, yeah, I remember this one when it came out, because apparently, I mean, I don't know exactly how true this is, but Netflix was really trying to capitalize on this film by saying like it had a large number of viewers turning it off like halfway through because like
Right.
and
Yeah.
you're, like trying to say like
think
this is how
even-
scary it is.
I think I even noted that in my review. I'm like, I don't get that. Like, why you turn it off? I mean, like, what do you? It's an exorcism movie. It's going to be scary.
Yeah.
I think it's more of like it lives up to the hype of just being a really good exorcism movie.
Yeah.
That's one I actually probably should rewatch because I can't remember too many specifics, but I gave it a 91, and it's really, really good.
I hope it's still on there, because if it is, I'll watch it.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Yeah, I think it's still on there.
Sweet.
It's cool. All right. Well, this one's my last one. It's a 2024 movie, but I didn't want to kind of group it in with like the state of horror things, because honestly, this is I would count this more as like, if it came out in like the 90s or the 80s, it would probably be a straight to VHS kind of title, because it didn't get a theatrical release or anything. It was a Shudder only release, or a Shudder exclusive. It's called Destroy All Neighbors, and it's actually got Alex Winter in it.
Oh, nice.
It's about this young guy who, he's trying to make his music, and it's just like, it's coming out really shitty. He can't concentrate. And this crazy foreign old guy moves in next door, and he's like pumping weights, and you can hear him like screaming through the walls. It's like, like just this crazy stuff. And the dude just can't concentrate. And it's kind of like The Voices, you know what I mean? Where it just progressively just escalates and gets worse as it goes on. And these neighbors just keep popping up and just preventing this dude from doing his stuff. And he's just going more and more insane as it goes on.
Oh, this is like a new movie.
Yeah.
Okay, sweet.
So, like I said, I wanted to save it to last because it didn't really get a theatrical run. So, I feel like automatically, like,
Right.
a bunch of people are going to miss it. You know what I mean? Everyone is subscribed to Shudder. I was actually exposed to it because I saw it at Walmart in the DVD rack. So I was like, I'll take a chance on it, because I'll do that every now and then. And that's how I discovered that Rent-A-Pal movie. Sometimes I'll just grab a movie and just like, let's just go for it.
Yeah.
This was one of the cases where it turned out really good. And I didn't know it was Alex Winter at first, because like he's unrecognizable. Like there's a couple times where you see the eyes, like, okay, that's him. But for the most part, he's just some old, big, crazy guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it kind of takes it back to, like his practical stuff that he did, like in Freaked. You know what I mean?
Hell yeah. Love that one.
And also it's like in the new Bill and Ted movie, the third one, they had all the different, versions of themselves, and he was in the suit. So I feel like he, practical makeup is just kind of his jam, and like he really shines in this one as a very memorable, like, I don't want to say villain, but maybe antagonist, you know what I mean? Because he's definitely antagonizing this guy through the whole movie. So definitely give that one a watch. Good, it's good stuff.
Sweet. Have it on the list. All right, Joe, how many more do you have?
I have 2 plus another 2 that I kind of want to just group into one.
Okay. I have 2 more. So go ahead.
This is from 2020. It's called Caveat. I don't know if you guys have seen or heard of this one.
I've had that on my list because you recommended it.
Yeah, it's on my list too. I haven't seen it. Everybody's like, dude, you got to watch this movie.
Yeah, it's a pretty killer one. So I believe it's an Irish film. Anyway, it's from the UK. But there's like this guy, like the main character. He's like this amnesiac, like kind of a homeless guy. But some wealthier dude comes up to him and says, "Hey, do you want a job? I can give you a nice chunk of money. And so I need you to look after this little girl for, I think, just for a day or two." And the guy's like, "Fine, sure, I'll do it." And then, but like each time he kind of explains the deal to him, it gets weirder and weirder. He goes, "Okay, but she lives by herself, and she's kind of mentally troubled. She lives by herself in an old house." He's like, "That's fine." He's like, "All right, so I'll drive you out there." By the way, the house is on a small island on a lake. And the guy's like, "Okay, that's fine. That's weird." Oh, and then also, for your safety, we have to chain you. This is almost like this chest harness, and we have to chain you, and then I'll come back and I'll pay you. But like, this guy doesn't really remember anything past like a certain amount of time, so he actually has a connection to this guy, and it's just part of like a bigger plan. So it starts off kind of like a mystery thriller in a way, but it gets weirder. And when you start to when they start to reveal more of the past and how these guys are connected, as well as the past of this little girl, it gets darker and weirder. The supernatural, it's funny, like the supernatural elements don't really show up until a little bit later in the film, and even then they're pretty subdued. But the movie still has like this really cool, almost like a dark fantasy aesthetic, or like a storybook aesthetic. It just has like this very, I don't know. There's something very artistic about it that I love. There's a lot of weird imagery in it, and there is one standout scene that I will not say. I won't give anything away, but it does involve the main character trapped in an enclosed space with a corpse, and I won't say anything else about it. But that was a scene that I watched with my my ex roommate Jim, because we've seen so many horror movies. So like, we're always impressed when a film gets to us. So during that scene, we're like, oh shit, oh fuck, oh shit. So we were freaking out during that, and it's not even that violent. It's just a bleak, weird, bizarre, unsettling, tense horror film. So that one is my pick.
That actually, and that's a good segue into my next pick, because I accidentally went out of order. I gave this movie a 90. I gave Veronica 91. But anyway, this movie, and Joe, you've probably heard me talk about it like 10 times, but this movie is probably the scariest movie on this list. And I don't even know, like, things scared me when I was 12 versus now. Like, I watched this movie 3 years ago, maybe. It's from 2018. This is probably the scariest movie I've seen in a long time. It's a Korean movie called Ganjam Haunted Asylum. Right. It is so fucking scary. It's a mix of found footage, but it's 2018. So instead of Blair Witch, where it's VHS tapes and handheld cameras, it's body cams with for streaming, like facing the. And they do this so well, how they will like cut to different people's cameras at obviously certain times for added effect. And so what I said in my review, I've reviewed my review of it, and it's like there's nothing really new here. It's a bunch of 20-somethings going to a haunted asylum to get streams, like to make content. Like that's been done a bunch, but the way it's done is so scary. There are particularly like 2 scenes that one was like jaw-droppingly scary because it's sudden, and then one is like blanket up to your nose scary. Like you see it coming, and it like totally pays off. So if you want to like legit, which I think legit be scared, watch Ganjam Haunted Asylum.
Yeah, it's on Peacock and Tubi and stuff right now. It's on a bunch of
check it out. Yeah, I found that it stuck with me.
Hell yeah.
Oh, I'm going to watch that for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Jim, you said you're done, right?
Yeah, that's it for me.
All right, cool. All right, Joe, you want to do you say you're going to put a bunch together, or?
Yeah, there are 2 that I'm going to put together. So
sleeve here.
Yeah. So these are 2 films actually, Ben, that I recommended to you for upcoming installments of Shed Selection. They are Resolution and The Endless.
Yeah.
Resolution. So these are both made by the same guys, and they actually both take place in the same cinematic.
These are horror?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have them. We'll do them soon.
They both take place in the sort of same cinematic universe. But Resolution, it's about this guy who's got like he's got like a job and a wife, and he's got a stable life. But his best friend is a drug addict, and so he receives word from him that he's just gonna go. He's like, all right, fuck it, like I'm, bye, leave me alone, everybody. So he goes out into the middle of nowhere, and so this guy is like, he feels bad, so he's like, okay, I'm gonna go out there, and I'm like, I don't care if I have to like chain him, like I'm gonna make him go cold turkey. I'm gonna make him clean. I'm gonna get him clean. But then, and so like they're staying in this weird little cabin out in the middle of nowhere, out kind of like in the desert. But they start getting like messages, like tapes and CDs and video cassettes of like this thing that's watching them, and like photographs of them. So something is watching them, is communicated to them. So it's a little bit horror. It's a little bit more sci-fi thriller with some supernatural elements. But there's also like a weird like UFO cult that's nearby in the desert that has some connections to this thing. So it's kind of Lovecraftian, of like this massive entity that's kind of, like beyond their comprehension, which goes into the next film, which is made by the same guys, called Resolution. This one came out in 2012, and this one leans more into horror, and this one has some more like supernatural, and this one gets even more Lovecraftian. But it's interesting because like the films are connected, like one or two characters from Resolution show up in the Endless just for like one scene, just for like one sequence. I'm sorry, because like the films weren't even like a hit, so it's not like, oh, like this is like, have you been following this? I'm doing this just for the fans. It's like, no, like for the 10 people who saw my first film, you guys will get a kick out of this. But it actually does. There's a lot of thematic stuff, but Resolution follows these two brothers who grew up in a sort of like a doomsday cult when they were young. They got out of it. They're kind of in therapy, so they're still kind of like learning how to get over their experience from this. But they get a video from that cult, and it's a recent. So this is like 10 years after they left the cult, and yet everyone in the video, like nobody has aged. So one of the brothers like, okay, I got to go back because this thing's still haunting me. I got to get some closure on this. So the two brothers, they go out. And yeah, it's almost exactly the same as it was when they were kids. But this, like the sort of commune, it's located like kind of like at like the nexus of like time and space. So there's all this like weird physics stuff that's happening. It's like the time and space are bending in weird ways. And there's one cool scene where they're doing like this sort of initiation scene. This initiation activity, and they're playing. It's at night, and they're playing tug of war, and this huge this huge rope, and it just goes off into the sky, and they're pulling on it, and then it pulls them back. So it's like both films deal with like this entity that's never seen, but it's like its presence just gradually gets more and more. It starts to manifest more and more. Again, more kind of like psychological thinking man horror films, and less on blood and special effects. But I kind of like that. They're both low budget films that use a lot of make up for it with a lot of creativity. So yeah, those are mine.
All right, Joe, get Chomper before we wrap up. Jim, you have time for one more? Yeah. All right, and then I'll plug the. We have a Medium page you can check out for all these reviews that I reference is on that. All sorts of fiction writing, other musings. We have a Patreon where you can check out our merch. You can sign up for 4 different tiers. They all come with merch. They range from $3 to I think like $29 a month. And you can check out. So here's Chomper for my aunt, who's one of our biggest fans. She loves dogs. So there's Chomper. Get a look at that mug.
He's so cute.
Classic underbite. All right. Thank you, Chomper, for appearing on the pod. And Claire, I hope you enjoyed that. Anytime we'll always whore out Chomper on here. Yeah. All right. Lastly, to wrap up, this my last pick. Maybe to like big horror fans, they might roll their eyes like, dude, this isn't underrated. I think it's underrated. No normie ever talks about this movie. If you ask them on the street, horror movies, they're going to say Halloween. They're going to say Friday the 13th. They're going to say, Dawn of the Dead, that kind of stuff. No shit to those movies. I love some of those movies. Yes. This movie to me is the epitome of fun 80s horror, scary, campy, and that is 1985's Fright Night. I love this movie. I give it a 93. Yeah. I think this movie rules. I remember seeing it like Not sure what it was. I think I was doing it during Horror Fest before we even had the pod, Joe, and I would just binge horror movies during October, and I was floored by this movie. I thought it was so fun. It's practical effects. It's like it's ridiculous. Like it has like 80s ridiculousness to it. It has like the campy, like we were talking about earlier, the snake oil salesman, the charlatan, like that kind of guy who gets exposed, but then he's sort of a hero, has the teen stereotypes. It's so great. I love this movie. It's right in 1985, right in the middle of the 80s, and it just is the quintessence of the 1980s horror movies. And I give it a 93. I love this movie. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. They did remake it. It's okay. It's not my favorite. I think I give that one like a 72 in the late 2010s. Yeah. But check out the original 1985 Fright Night.
Yeah, I love that one. And I remember seeing it on TV and same thing, like being very surprised because I was just like, yeah, whatever. It's probably just a fun little slasher flick. But then I ended up like loving it. I like just how funny it is, and it's similar to the Blob, where it's just like it just has everything that you want. And it's
a great movie poster too. Great movie poster.
Oh yeah,
classic. Yeah.
Well, Jim, I think you and I had talked about it on Twitter, where like there was like this thing in the '80s of like horror movie posters of like some kind of like thing in the crowds. Yeah, of the clouds. Yeah.
Return of the Living Dead 2, Fright Night. There's a Nightmare on Elm Street poster that's like that.
You can't escape it. That's the whole thing.
Monster Squad, it's another
Monster Squad. Holy shit,
But man. So, like I said, it's like it's cool that you brought that one up because that's the main seller that like why I was going to the drive-in this weekend, and I was like, they're playing Fright Night. Oh hell yeah, I gotta see that in the big screen. And then when I looked up, and seen what they were playing with, I'm like, oh, they're playing The Burbs. So then I called my dad up. I was like, you're coming, like we're going together.
That is such a great. It's such a great movie theater movie, whether it's drive-in or regular. Like I wish they released it somewhere near me in a theater. I would go see it. It's just like fun. You can enjoy it. You can enjoy it in the summer, but also it's like a great, just like October fall movie, like horror movie. It's amazing. And I don't think it gets nearly as much love compared to all these other horror movies that came out of that era.
Yeah. They did make a sequel, but I heard it was not as good though.
I haven't seen the sequel. I've seen the remake.
No, but what is interesting about the sequel is because it's out of print, it's actually worth a lot of money.
Really?
And I do have it, so
nice.
Like one of my coveted pieces.
Yeah,
great. Oh yeah, you have like a wild DVD collection, right?
Yeah. And it's still growing. I'm almost ready to add another shelf. So it's starting to pile up in front of the other stuff. So it's still growing.
All right. Well, I think it's a very informative episode. A lot of people can get a lot of recommendations out of this. Hopefully you'll be back for Horror Fest
in October.
I think you came on last year. I can't remember. But we always do. Last year we did like 1 week. Each week's a subgenre. I have to go remember exactly what. I think we did exorcism, zombie.
I think I was there for that.
I think you were there for the slasher, maybe. That would make sense.
That's right. Yeah.
So we'll pick 4 more this year and just discuss the subgenre. And obviously we'll see you on Twitter. Just how we met, just like all of us met.
All right, Jim. So thanks for coming on, buddy. It was good. It was we missed you, and so looking forward to the next one, man.
All right, glad to be back, and thanks for having me. Really enjoyed talking, and as I always do about this stuff because it's like really this is my passion, man. Scary movies, movie talk. I love this stuff.
You're our first go-to when we want to talk horror.
Yeah. All right, everybody.
Stay reckless.
Stay reckless.